what I was talking about.
Huh?
Oh, you didn't get it.
What was it?
No,
They
it's
said
a sink.
you're doing.
It's a
Yeah,
sinking.
she said.
Ah, yeah.
Autism.
No explain it.
Huh?
You were thinking. Cheta was not even
You
listening.
must.
Not even. I said, well, I don't have
It's
no
not
idea.
over.
So,
No, well,
He
I'll
said
tell you
Cheta is
after.
seeking odd stories. Oh, that would be easy to remember.
She said Cheta is odd. That's what Mr. Sister. I said, that would be easy to remember.
So there.
Get quick access to loans from Page Financials. Page Financials, taking you further.
Big difference. Ah, praise God. Ayo, you believe in God, right?
I do.
It's amazing. Something just happened right now. You're listening to Freshly Pressed 91 here on Smooth Breakfast with Ayo Myro Essay.
And Valentine Oho, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. C. How you doing?
Good morning, Valentine. Good morning, Naya.
My
Good
guys.
morning, Lagos.
Good morning, Chata.
good morning.
How you feeling this morning?
Down.
I see my teeth.
Why are you feeling down?
Yeah, yellow.
Far from the truth. Chata, thank you so much for joining us. Mr. C, thank you so much for joining us this morning for Freshly Pressed 91. You can send messages with your observations and comments to 0809 444 That's our WhatsApp number.
And we are streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. You can also use the chat box option to send in your message. Right, let's go on straight to our first story for this morning. Cheta, I'll start with you. Army nab Boko Haram bomb-making materials supplier. Guardian reports that the troops of Sector 2 Joint Task Force Operation Hayden High have nabbed a man supplying bomb-making materials to Boko Haram members in Gaidam Local Council of Yobe State. So it's not the material they said that is being used for the bombs is a fertilizer that's been banned. Urea fertilizer by the federal government because it's been found out that it's been used in the manufacture of improvised explosive devices by terrorists. So would you consider this a win? And I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
I mean, very soon they will ban NPK too because NPK is used for bomb making. Or maybe ammonia fertilizer as well because ammonia can be used for bomb. Anyway, the only win I consider here is the fact that which is only the first time that they've nabbed the Boko Haram bomb maker that they are giving us a name. Normally they don't. So let me tell you the previous two. On April 10, 2018, a man called Adamu Hassan was arrested by the military in Gombe, and he was called Boko Haram's chief bomb maker, just like this Yusuf Sali was called chief bomb maker yesterday. In July of 2018, a 15-year-old called Ali Goni was arrested, I think in Yobe State, and he was also called a chief IED manufacturer. And the claim was that he had manufactured over 500 IEDs before he was arrested. If we go back, he's killed, and they didn't tell his name. September 2016, the army had announced that they had arrested a chief bomb maker who was being trained to infiltrate the army. In November last year, another person who was also called the chief bomb maker was arrested. These are 5 examples that I can remember off the top of my head, but lost count of the number of times that bomb makers have been arrested. Now, you know why these don't impress me? They don't impress me because and I would give latitude to that I may be getting so cynical about it that I don't bother to follow up again. But as far as I know, neither Adamu Hassan nor Ali Goni have been convicted. One. I don't know whether they've been put in the Sulu program for de-radicalization and resettlement. I don't know. But just as importantly, or even perhaps more importantly, is that we don't have, and the lawyer here can correct me if I'm wrong, as far as I know, we've not put any significant financier on trial. Talk less of conviction. Remember
Have there
that
been
last
any
year?
even picked up? Sorry, because
Well, they
if we're
claimed
gonna put
they
in
put
trial.
sometime was it last year or early this year? Since this COVID time, dates blur.
Yeah.
So Dubai announced the arrest and conviction of up to 10 people who were involved, and then shortly after, Nigeria announced the arrest, not just arrests, of people who mainly in the BDC business, who they said were helping to finance this thing. And if memory serves me, I beg, lawyer, did they give us any of the names of those that were purportedly arrested?
Yes, a few names were given because there was a raid conducted in Kano, but after that, it's been very quiet.
So no trial.
No trial.
We're not aware any trial has started yet.
So you are now the presidency, you're not aware.
All right, thank you,
We
Cheta.
expect him to
Do
have the
not
answers.
interrogate our analyst. Thank you. Well, thanks. Very, very important point you've mentioned, and it's good to cast our minds back. Usually, when we have big announcements like that and we don't have a follow-up, because unfortunately, oftentimes you find that in the system. Something else you mentioned and made me just want to ask the question very briefly. Do you think that with what you just said and the linkage to the BDCs, could that be part of why the CBN gave the directive as to clamping down on them because of illegal activities?
No, the CBN has another agenda, which I will not. I don't feel free to speculate on right now, because I mean,
Thank you.
I
Don't
define
speculate.
forex.
I was going to say that.
All right, thank you. Since you're on security, Mr. C, let me go to this next story from The Guardian, also in The Guardian. Repentant insurgents can be prosecuted, Lai Mohammed, the Minister of Information and Culture, has said. I'd like to take a quote from him, and then I'd love for you to speak to the other parts of this story. He said, I personally spoke to the military authority before I left Nigeria, and they said what they were doing is what the global practice dictates about soldiers that surrendered, that should be treated as prisoners of war. So for me, I would like to ask you, this statement about soldiers or well, I don't know why you refer to them as soldiers, but Boko Haram terrorists who have surrendered, should they be treated as prisoners of war? And then I'd like you to break it down by what he means by global best practices. And of course, he mentioned at the end of this article that we have to even commend the president, because it's due to his doggedness and the military's doggedness that these people are coming to down their arms.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Aya. So let's take this from the very beginning. Circa 5th of June 2013, 8 years ago, the federal government banned and proscribed Boko Haram. From that date in law, Boko Haram became an illegal body, and membership of that body became a criminal offense. Now, fast forward, we now have some ridiculous program called the Repentant Insurgents program, where members of Boko Haram who claim they have repented are reabsorbed back into society.
Sorry, isn't it a bit sharp to say that it's a ridiculous program? It might be your personal opinion.
No, Ayo, it's the law. If a body has been declared to be legally prohibited, membership of that body makes you a criminal.
Okay.
It's just like membership of secret societies.
Well, you can decide to.
Cults have been prohibited. Now, the truth of the matter is, they're not. So when he says they're prisoners of war, it's not a conventional war. Now, the prisoners of war he was referring to, their conventions that stipulate how you treat captured members of the opposing army or armies in a conventional war. These are terrorists killing innocent people. And in conventional wars, there are rules of engagement. Boko Haram does not have rules of engagement. Now, it's instructive to note that he says they can be prosecuted. Now, to be prosecuted, there must be evidence that the particular individual or individuals you intend to prosecute, you have evidence against them. So, yes, there's a general church, membership of an illegal body. But beyond that, are we keeping records of the people who come in, who say they are repenting and coming in?
How many people were born in Nigeria? Yes.
I have no idea.
We don't have records.
So beyond that, so two, how do we even tell we have repented? And we hear reports that some of these individuals are being absorbed into the Nigerian army.
Okay, so would you, I know this is, okay, I won't use this example because I don't think it tallies. But do you think that, I mean, people have made arguments for this with regards to our prison system is full already. We want them to, we see in many parts of the world, amnesty offered to, to terrorists or to factions, and put it that way, has seemed to work so that it encourages people to come out, especially because of when you investigate the reason behind why a number of people are recruited, one, poverty being part of it, social and economic factors. Do you think at all that amnesty is worth exploring with regards to tackling the scourge of Boko Haram?
So, yeah, I won't rule out amnesty provided they're willing to give up their murderous and criminal ways. However, what has informed this recent desire to return to Nigeria to proper society is the renewed offensive against them by the militaries of Nigeria, Chad.
Actually, no.
Okay.
What's really, I mean, various credible Boko Haram researchers and analysts have said this. What has really driven the current wave of surrender is the victory by ISWAP in the intra-Boko Haram civil war. Because ISWAP has given many of them a sort of like ultimatum. Do that work for us. That's it. Basically, join us or you die. So that has been the main driver.
Right, so you're saying, Cheta, that it's not the efforts of the military or the federal government that's
No, that contributes.
Yeah.
There's no gainsaying.
Okay.
But the main driver.
All right. Okay. Let me ask a final question because, Mr. C, I go back to your point with regards to they're going back, they're reintroduced into society. Some of them are made to join the army, and you are not sure if they're even repentant. So, what are the metrics for determining the repentance of a terrorist?
That's a tough one. See, the New Humanitarian published a very brilliant piece last Friday, I believe, or Thursday, and they spent 6 months researching it. And they were very clear that many of these, as in many of the people who have quote unquote repented have gone back. But what is preventing some of those who repented from going back is that some of those who went back were executed, accused of being spies and executed. So at the end of the day, yes, we must be clear on something. Yes, there has to be a carrot approach.
Yes.
But before putting the carrot on the table, you have to do your due diligence to be certain that the people that you are giving the carrot to are worthy of eating that carrot. And in all the stories that I've heard, and I talk with people who are involved in some of these things, in all the stories I've heard, that due diligence isn't done. And that's a problem. It's problematic.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's what I mean. It's
Oh, by
important
the
to
way,
remember.
many of them, or some, quite a number of them, somehow pass through the radicalization program and then end up in the Northwest as bandits. I think that needs to be put on the table as well.
Thank you. Let's come to you, since you're with the mic, Peter. Nigerians spend 12.3 trillion naira on petrol, diesel in 6 years. This is by an analysis of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation monthly financial and operation reports between April 2015 and April 2021. I don't think when you look at these figures, you're surprised. One of the things that the article highlights, I'd like you to touch on, is the fact that we're still very reliant and even looking for hydrocarbons. So
Oh,
fossil
look,
fuels.
we're still looking for fuel.
For
in
fuel.
the ground.
So and the world is moving on towards leaving fuel behind.
It's moving on towards it has moved
Uh,
on.
well, I'm moving some-
By the
some
time people
action.
start announcing dates, that's when they will stop using the internal combustion engine,
Yeah.
which they have started announcing. They've moved on. I mean, it's just
So-
for reality to catch up with.
So
them.
what would you have to say about this? We're still holding on to the past. We don't seem to be catching up with the global world, and we are spending a lot of money on hydrocarbons and fossil fuels.
To be honest, I have no idea what I'll say in that respect, because see, as a Saudi prince once very nicely said, the world did not the world did not move on from the age of the horse because all the horses died. Something else came along. The world has moved on from the age of the internal combustion engine. It's just a matter of and in this is 2021, but so 14 years really, and 14 years is we'll sleep, wake up, and 14 years don't pass. So, but with regards the first part of the story, which is that we spent 12.3 trillion naira on petrol and diesel in 6 years,
Yeah.
I don't see too much of a problem there. I see it as more a manifestation of the whole subsidy and official petrol consumption numbers, blah blah blah, which personally I continue to find ridiculous. I mean, as a general rule, these numbers tend to outpace all the other this thing. And don't forget that our largest import is refined petroleum. That's the single largest import thing that we import. These numbers are driven by not just us, but the rest of West Africa. And we provide an incentive for the rest of for smugglers to smuggle petrol that's imported into Nigeria to other parts of West Africa because we subsidize. I mean, if I had the funds and I had the networks, I will do it because you buy petrol for 162 here. You manage to somehow get it just across. So let's assume you.
Isn't that illegal? Doing what you're describing.
Yes, of course, it's illegal.
So why would you say that on radio that you will do it?
I said I give provisions because I don't have the money to do it. So that's so legally.
You do not support
I'm
that
sitting
message.
by a lawyer.
All right, go
So
on, please.
so at least I have my lawyer here so that if they come to pick me up. See, the point is we are providing the incentive. You buy petrol here for 162. In Cotonou, officially,
Cotonou.
huh?
Cotonou.
You have the pronunciation, I have the name. In Cotonou, it's 364. In Niamey, it's 412. In Amenda, it's 380 whatever, forgotten the actual figure. Bottom line is that these are the three countries around us, and then you buy 162. I have sat, as in I was sitting across from NMPC in Jimeta when I saw a tanker being loaded and then repainted and then seeded across the border. This one is not Dempsey, this one is ISO. And this thing happens routinely. It's an incentive. And one thing we need to understand in human existence is that people are not inherently good. In Nigeria, we've been brainwashed to believe that, people just are either good or bad. No, people respond to incentives. So basically, you have given an incentive for people to smuggle. Why do you think our consumption numbers keep growing month on month on month on month? What that tells me is that a lot of people are in on the act. Despite the so-called sealed borders, people are doing this and doing it big time and getting away with it. Let's be realistic here. So yes, if I had the money,
All right,
it's
thank
business.
you. Thank you, Jetta. It's not business, it's illegal.
It's illegal. That's it. That's it is. We'll be back to take your messages on Freshly Pressed 981. Stay with us.
So you don't have integrity.
Huh?
You don't have integrity.
I define money.
You're not there.
What story is next?
Okay.
So Mr. C will be one of our stories.
Yeah.
Maybe the
I'll start with
SRS.
the FRS. So.
FRS. That's the one you want to take. Okay. Let me first. All right.
So after that, we'll do the budget thing.
Yes. Oh, after that budget, yeah.
You don't want to take the striking doctors. You're tired of them.
No, we do. It's just that there are more stories
Go
than
back.
for that. Yeah.
5 seconds. Thank you so much for staying with us, listening to Freshly Pressed 981 with a detailed analysis of our newspaper headlines at IMRSA.
And at Valentine Ohu, we have messages here. Jerry from Peace Estate in Barua said, "Sit at home is crippling the economy of Southeast." That's in the news, but we'll take that maybe till tomorrow. George Kobani says the Boko Haram disarmament and demobilization and reintegration can work, but it has to be a system. I don't see that system. It's not enough to carry placards and say sorry. The rule of law must prevail. We can't succeed in a society that people commit heinous crimes and get away with it.
Godwin from Bagada says no Boko Haram persons have been absorbed into the Nigerian army. If what you are saying is true, please name them and what rank, what army formation, platoon, battalion, or company. Speculation gives rooms to rumor. Mr. C, I was going to interject at that time, but I just shut my mouth so you could finish. But I don't think we can make claims like that without substantiating it with evidence.
So, Valentine, right? We have sources, and
What are,
if we give detail,
name your sources or decline commenting altogether.
um,
Yinka Bolu says repentant Boko Haram can be tried. I thought that the general officer commanding 7th Division, Major General Abdul Malik B, back in 2019 said repentant terrorists who lay down their arms stand the chance of becoming great in the society and even emerge as president. I don't like these contradictions. And he adds that the world won't totally move on from fossil fuels. Rather, all forms of energy will always complement each other. Yet, yes, we may not have crude prices in the near future, but no, they can't just end it. There are still countries that still use coal, you know. Do you even know the cost of setting up these green energy sources? It's humongous, bro. And you can't also rule out global politics part of it. Thank you, Inka, for your message. Let's talk about
Do I
money.
have permission to reply?
1 second. Yeah, okay. 1 second, I guess. Or 3.
Yinka, take a walk down Constitution Avenue in the US, in Washington, and count the number of electric cars you see. There's a reason why Tesla has become one of the most valuable companies in the world in such a short time. Let's not, right today, if you land in Schiphol in Amsterdam, the first car you will see being displayed is an the equivalent of AMG, but the EMG, a Jeep.
Yeah.
As in, they've phased out advertising for all of that. They've moved.
It's a gradual process. I guess that's the point he's trying to pass across, that you can't naturally phase them all out in one day.
That is why they give timelines of 2035.
I was having the same conversation with my brother yesterday, and he can drive his car 30 miles on one charge. So it's interesting there. FRS insists on collecting VAT, they warned taxpayers, or they are warning taxpayers against defaults, said the risk penalties for failing to do so. And then this is a reaction still continuing on the heels of the recent court ruling obtained by the River State government at the Federal High Court in Port Harcourt. What are your thoughts on this, Mr. C? It's still a long-drawn conversation. FRS is still insisting status quo. Who takes precedence in these rulings? Is it the court or FRS itself?
okay, so let's double back very quickly. Prior to 2021, VAT was collected by the federal government. In 2021, the River State government, before the Federal High Court, the River Port Harcourt Division, challenged that scenario. And in a considered decision, the Federal High Court Port Harcourt Division ruled that VAT should be collected by the states. Now, since then, the FIRS has filed a notice of appeal and also an application for stay. Arguments were taken on the application for stay of execution and an injunction. They sought an injunction. However, this is important. The ruling on the application for stay of execution and the ruling on the application for injunction has not been delivered. Now, it is the law that a judgment, no matter how perverse it is, remains law until it's set aside or restrained. Now, the extant law today in Nigeria is that state governments collect VAT until the Court of Appeal, in a considered judgment, sets aside the judgment of
the Federal High Court.
Federal High Court. That is the position. So the FIRS releasing this press statement, they've gotten it wrong, and it's very easy to get it wrong. So I'm not really concerned about that.
Are you saying the lawyers are incompetent?
Say that again.
Are you saying the lawyers are incompetent?
No, it's not incompetence, it's more of mischief. So it's possible the lawyers gave them the correct position, but the guys at top law are like, look, listen, we'll sort that out.
So while they are grandstanding and making threats like this, can they act on it?
So
Given the court
so
judgment.
yes, they can try to harass people who've been paying VAT previously. But the truth of the matter is, you have no legal obligation to pay now, because that judgment has not been set aside. And it will be good that taxpayers get a copy judgment.
Thank you for that. Time is ticking.
Ha!
Time is ticking. Cheta, let's
May
move
they
on.
grab my account.
Oh, look at that. Cheta, you have time actually to speak on this one. This day has this
No,
story.
I need to.
Canvas time limits for budget passage, fiscal act amendments. They've asked the National Assembly to ensure that there's a definite timeline for passage of an assent to the annual budget in order to ensure fiscal certainty and promote economic growth and development. Now, this was arrived at a virtual forum christened Old Paper Parliamentary Engagement Nigeria, supported by the Partnership to Engage, Reform and Learn. What are your thoughts on this and the communication?
Can I download that judgment? And then you will, if they
We
seize my accounts, I will hold you.
We have just 4 minutes to go through 2 stories, so we can discuss that after the show and then focus on this one.
Okay. Yeah. See, on paper this is good, but if memory serves me, there's already a budget act and all of that. There's a time limit for these things. There's a financial year. So even if we pass another law, how do we enforce? That's the question. I mean, we have a National Assembly at this point in time that behaves like the executives. I can't use the word that came to head on breakfast radio. So the key thing is it's the National Assembly's job to call the executive to order.
Yes.
But when you have a National Assembly that is always, that's every time the executive say guy open, they are ready to,
How wide?
that kind of thing. So it's I look at this and I'm like, guys, we're as usual. We're not looking at the substance, we're just looking at the flash. We don't need a new law for budget. We just need sensible people in leadership positions
To act on the existing laws.
to act on the existing laws.
Thank you.
Thank you for keeping me restrained.
All right. Thank you
Yes, see
very
about
much.
that thing.
And let's go on to our next story, and from the striking doctors as they rejected new MOU proposed by the federal government. The detail is in the story. It's in this particular one is in this day, but I'd like to just highlight something, and I'll use that as a foundation for the rest of the story. The national president of NARD, Dr. Oyilawa Okiayesu, said, "We rejected the MOU. We did not sign it because we are being punished for the failures of the government." Also, this article speaks of distrust. So they don't trust the fact that even though they're coming to the table, that the federal government would honor. And obviously, based on precedents, you can understand why they have taken this stance. Please take us through the story, Mr. C.
Okay, so very quickly, the federal government had previously signed a memorandum of understanding with NERD concerning its demands. Now, no surprises here. That MOU was not honored. They proceeded on a strike. And on Friday, a meeting commenced between representatives of NARD and the Ministry of Labor and the Ministry of Health. And that meeting continued yesterday. Now, however, the outcome of that meeting took two divergent turns. NERD says it's continuing with the court case, that they are not going to accept the new MOU proposed by the Minister of Labor. And I understand that there's a trust deficit really in Nigeria. And if you didn't honor the previous MOU, what are the chances you're going to honor this one? And their point predictably is, why do you need a new MOU? You have the old MOU, just go and implement it. Now, the Minister of Labor says they've addressed most of their concerns and that payment will start on Friday this week. Now, I don't know, his assurances are that it's moved from the budget to the budget office, and the budget office should start processing. People will start getting credited on Friday this week. Now, people will start getting credited on Friday.
Alert.
Does not indicate when the process will be completed. Now, it doesn't address the larger issues that underpinned the strike action. And I think for once, maybe this court action will make things clear, because underlying everything is the fact that Nigeria doesn't have the money to sustain these proposals. So at some point, there's going to be another default. And at that point, is there going to be another strike? Now, it's interesting to note very quickly, fun fact, 4,568 doctors have left Nigeria in the last 6 years, and in the UK. That is Those are doctors that were trained in Nigeria. Now you have another group that were trained in the UK. Now, I understand, I saw a study recently, and the Nigerian doctor now is treating 4,000 people.
Yeah.
We have to.
No, actually, 1 to 5,000. No. Paulie Demedia, thank you for a message from Surulere. He says, let's be realistic. Increase in pump price of fuel in Nigeria will not in any way discourage smuggling. They will smuggle across the border and sell at an increased price in those countries. It appears that smuggled fuel determines the pump price in those countries. Who are the smugglers, by the way? Is it the ordinary man on the street? Deal with them, and smuggling will end or minimize.
Okay, I think it's important to explain that in all the three countries mentioned, the petrol price is determined by market forces, so it's sort of in line with global prices. So if we bring our own petrol prices closer to line with global prices, it removes the incentive to smuggle because the profit margins are wiped away.
Yeah.
Right now, the profit margins are ridiculous. It's almost is somewhere between 50 cents and $1 per liter. So if you can get a single trailer with 33,000 liters across, and let's assume 50 cents, that's already $16,500 on one trailer. That's incentive.
All right, stay with us. Thank you, Cheta. Thank you, Mr. C, for your apt analysis this Monday morning. Up next, we'll have a robust discussion on the tax issues and hopefully answer Cheta's questions within that time. Our guests will be Oyemi Oke, a tax lawyer, and Martin Zaroge, a tax expert. Speak on tax education, know your taxes. You're listening to Smooth Breakfast with Ayomiro Ese.
And Valentine this morning.
Quick access to loans from Page
Thank you
Financial.
very much. Just how are you?
Page Financials.
Which one now?
You.
Really?
Here's Gege.
Desires of
Yeah,
which
I was just
would
acting.
love to
No, but seriously, I'm not going to be the one to challenge
Or
FIRS.
just satisfying one
Try it.
See,
You know the
Try
kind of car
all
you want to
the-
drive.
I know somebody that they froze his account.
Your children to the death. You
I
want
cannot
something
afford for my
that you
account to
have
be